Okay, so good evening. It is Wednesday, November 9th, 6 p.m. And this is the second Village of Hannah City Community and Economic Development Council meeting. What I'd like to do is start by having everybody introduce themselves. So if there's people that watch this later, they kind of know who's on there. And also who you represent would be helpful as well. So my name's Brian Baylor, and I am the administrator for the Village of Hannah City.
Zach Chatterton, Farmington Schools.
Jeannie Thomas, Farmington Area Public Library District.
David Total, Logan Tribolo 5.
Jennifer Reeder, member at large.
Perfect. Zach?
And I'm Zach Seidek, trustee of the Village of Hannah City.
Perfect. Thank you, guys. I'm going to go ahead and put this back on here, so if somebody else comes into the waiting room, I can see them. Okay, no guests that we need to recognize, and we already did introductions, so that's great. What you have, the first thing in your packet is the minutes from the last meeting. Thank you, Zach, for putting those together. At this time, I'll give you, if you haven't had a chance to review them, I'll give you a little bit of a time to review them. And then if not, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting. Do I have a second? Okay, so we got a motion by Chatterton, a second by Reeder. Any discussion on the minutes? All right, all those in favor of approving the minutes from the last meeting, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so I just want to give a little bit of an opening. First, I want to thank you guys again for being part of this. It's huge for the Village of Hannah City, and we've got a lot of really exciting things happening, I think, and I hope once you see kind of what we're talking about, you'll be excited. What I was saying before we went on the recording is I'm not a policy maker, and you guys are policy advisors. The village board is policy makers. So my role, first of all, is to take what I heard from you guys at the last meeting, take what I hear from other community partners, take what I hear from the board members, take what I hear from the community and so forth, and package that into something that I think represents what I'm hearing people say. Then I'll bring it to this meeting for you guys to review. You guys will have a chance to modify or say how you feel about it. And that's what I would encourage you. And when we go through the meeting, if there's something that you really like, say it. If there's something that you don't like or have a question about, say it or ask. I really want to, I have a high input drive, so I like to have a lot of input from people. And I think that helps make us get better to the place where we want to go. One of the things I will do at each meeting, and this will be the first thing in your packet, is to show you the financials, the current financials. So our fiscal year, the village's fiscal year runs May 1 to April 30. So the packet that says CEDC financial report, this is through the end of September. I did get the October financials this morning, but I didn't have time to put them together for tonight's meeting. So this represents the 5th month of our fiscal year, okay? So we separate everything out. So TIF stands by itself. And then that first slide, you can see, if you follow the center column all the way down in the one that's in blue, that shows you our actual performance for the month. So we had $7,000 of income. We had only $1 of expense. And so we had almost, a little over $7,000 of positive variance for the month. We haven't been budgeting that long, so the budget comparison's not all that great. September is a property tax month. So if you remember, TIF money is based upon incremental property tax. So as property taxes go up for the properties that are in the TIF district, those additional dollars come into the TIF funding. So that's why we had a pretty good month of $7,000 for the month of September. If you look then year to date, next is September BDD. So this is the business development district. This is the additional 1% sales tax that's put on everything that's retail. That's where those dollars come from. We had income of $14,478 for the month of September. Just for your information, we're averaging around $14,000 a month for the BDD now, so roughly $168,000 a year. We don't have a lot of expenses yet because we don't have any programs rolling and so forth. So we had a positive variance of $14,472 for the month. Then the next slide would be year to date. So this would be through the first 5 months for TIF. So we have income of $21,087, expenses of $1992. Most of the expenses at this point are just the normal expenses that we have with the TIF attorneys and the economic development people that we work with, that we have a contract with. So we're positive 19,095 year to date, but what you have to remember is there'll be a time where we will rebate back 80% of the residential TIF dollars back to you all's
What
taxing
time
bodies.
period will that be?
I think it will happen, I think we decide at the end of the fiscal year, but then I don't think it actually comes to you till the fall of the following year. I think that's right. Have you guys received anything yet out of our TIF that you know of?
No, that comes from Peoria County, is that correct?
It does.
So you see that, is that about the same time you see it from Farmington? Is it the fall? Do you remember?
Yes, it's after the budget is set, which is at the September meeting, so that would sound about right.
Yeah,
You
so
really don't know what you're gonna be getting at that point, do you? It's just kind of whatever happens.
I know that last year's number was roughly so in the fall I had to turn it in. I mean, I'm guessing you guys haven't received it yet. It must be a year delayed or whatever. It was like 6,500 that was being redistributed back to the to you all, and that would have been divided up. I'm assuming you guys would have the largest amount of that. But.
It comes in the regular installment, right? Or do you-
I don't know.
property tax installment?
Does it
I
with
think
for you
Fulton
guys?
County issues it with the
I see
regular
it on
installment.
I see it on the bottom of our settlement sheets.
Yeah.
But you haven't seen any from Hannah City yet.
I'd have to look.
I'll tell you what, I'm gonna make a note.
That goes right to our treasurer, so I don't see that typically. I just know the amount.
I'm gonna make a note,
And then
when,
that TIF money is what, just put in to all the funds that we get? Like corporate building, I mean, is that how it's distributed?
well, I'm assuming it would either show up as property tax or as a TIF rebate.
It's just coming in as an income to you.
But for us, we have
Right.
9 funds
Funds.
that we levy for each one of
Right.
those, so it's proportional.
I think it's just
worked
under
out.
the general, as I understand it.
What I'll do is, I'll follow up with our folks and get an answer to that, and I'll send an email.
It's proportionally distributed based upon our tax levy
Yes.
in this category. So more of it goes in the ed fund, which goes
Right.
to pay for salaries, then it goes in.
So where it would have went before previously,
Yep.
it just goes there again.
Yep.
I'll send a note out to you guys, letting you know the timing once I get that information. Then you can see year-to-date BDD, so we're 5 months, we're 62,292. Again, I think we're on pace for 160-some thousand total for the year.
And that's a 1% sales tax?
Correct. So in Hannah City, there's already a 1% sales tax. The business development districts, for everything that's in the business development district, adds an additional 1% that comes directly into the business development district account. So when you go and buy something at Gill's, you pay 2% sales tax. 1% is a normal sales tax, 1% is a BDD tax. Okay?
And that's happening with what, Dollar General and Casey's too and all that?
Yeah, anything that's in the
Corporate limits?
in the district, yeah, in the business development district, yep. So then if you look at the cash summary, I think this is at the end of September. These numbers have changed at the end of October, but we had 32,000 roughly in the TIF account and 133 in the business development district.
But you still owe the coffee can, don't you, quite a bit?
We do owe, and we did pay them their rebate in this last month for the first year. So we did, so next time you see the numbers, they will have the first year's rebate to the coffee can in the numbers. So they get a percentage of the incremental property tax back, they get their sales and BDD tax back up into $55,000, and then at that point it's half, so it's 50%. I'll talk about that in a little bit as we talk about what we can do to impact positively our financials. So the summary point here is that we're making progress. Although we don't have a ton of money yet to do things with, but we are starting to be positive, at least financially, and that'll play into the next discussion that we're going to have. Any questions on that? Okay, so this next deck is where I'm probably going to spend the majority of our time. So again, what I've done is, since the last time we met, you guys gave me some input. We had some good thoughts about how do we build a strategy. We had some, I went back and looked at the last time the village did a kind of long-range plan. I've talked with a variety of people, and I did some benchmarking with Farmington, and I took all of that information and I kind of built it into something to share with you tonight. My view is it's always easier to look at something and poke holes at something versus start with a fresh piece of paper. So when I benchmarked Farmington, what I learned is they have a TIF district. And probably the biggest information I got from that is I think it affirmed for me that it takes a while to build money in the TIF side because of its incremental property tax. So it takes a while to build it up unless you have big major projects. So they had Peterson, I guess, which is the home, right? Kitchen Cook did a project in their water district they sold, and that was in the TIF district. So 100% of that property tax now goes into their district as well. I think they're 8 years in. So with incremental property taxes and those big projects, he said they're bringing in like $600,000 a year, something like that in year 8. So hopefully we will get to a place where that makes sense. We're obviously not there yet, but we're building towards that. If you look at they have 2 annual programs then. They have a historic business district program where they allocate $75,000 annually. And the way that program works is they will pay, I think, up to $15,000 or maybe, no, up to $7,500 for 75% of any project. So if somebody's going to do a $10,000 project and it gets approved by and you guys are on the approval board, or you are on for them, then the village or the business district would pay, their TIF would pay $7,500 of the $10,000 for that project. If they spend $20,000, the cap is still $7,500. If it's lower than that, then it's 75% of whatever the dollar amount is. Okay.
They actually do 2 within that historic business district.
Okay.
One is for the business, and another one is separate for the facade.
Okay.
And the front signage, because they want that historic look to it that has guidelines and has to meet the criteria.
Nice.
Such a facade project as well. So
Cool.
it's 2 faceted. So you a business owner could apply for 2 separate.
Nice. And then they have a residential program as well, and that is it's the 75% of approved expenses as well, up to $2,500 is what they do. And they've set aside $25,000 for that. And so any homeowner can come in and it's similar. It's mostly outdoor related stuff. So they want to put on new gutters, or if they want to reside, or if they want to do some landscaping, or I saw some tree projects, things like that. They will pay up to $2,500 for the residential projects. And my understanding is they do not have a business development district at this time, that all of their funding comes through TIF. Okay. So if you look at the next slide, then our current funds, these are the numbers I shared with you before. We got a $32,000 balance in the TIF fund, limited monthly income or annual income. On the BDD side, we have $133,000. That number's gone up actually, and we're getting around $14,000 a month, or $168,000 annually for the business development district. When I went out and talked to people, including you all from the last meeting, here's some of the kind of things that I heard in terms of the priorities for the TIF side. One, we've got to take the time to build income and revenues in order to get to where we need to go. We need to focus on any main big projects that we have. And right now, the big projects that we have in the pipeline or possibilities are the Herman development. We talked about that before at the corner of Pekin and 116. Ergonomic Partners, that's the business that's straight down here. Sorry, we got a guest coming in here. Hey, Ron, it's Brian. Welcome.
Hang on here.
We can hear you.
Oh, you can? Can you hear me now?
Yep. Just wanted to
okay.
check. Did you have anything specific, or are you just here to listen?
No, I'm just here to listen right now.
Okay. Well, we're already in the process. So as far as the big projects, one of the things is, I think our board is kind of in the mindset that we don't want to do any upfront money. So in other words, we're not going to say, hey, we're going to give you money to do something. It's all going to be on the back end from this point forward, saying that whatever you bring in incremental dollars, then we'll give you a break on those types of things. But the Herman development is one of the big projects, if we could get that moving. And I'm in contact with these people regularly. Ergonomic Partners, I don't know how familiar you are with them, straight down First Street, right at the end. They do robotics. They program robots for manufacturing, and they've just expanded their building, but there's a possibility that they'll continue to expand and look at the Public Works property that's right next door there, which would be 100% incremental tax, property tax, if they took that off the hands of the village. So I'm in contact with them. We have the coffee can project that's already in process. And the best thing we can do for the coffee can is get as many people to go there to help it be successful, because the sooner we get to the 50% trigger, then we begin to get 50% of the dollars that come into the coffee can. We just recently did an analysis of when we would get to the full 100%, and I think it was about 13 years based upon their current financials from the first year. And the BDD is a 21-year program. So the BDD lives for 21 years. That's how long the program lasts, and then it goes away.
As an example, what was the original projections?
You know what? I don't know that there was anybody that did anything that I remember. I wasn't here when the project was originally put together. I know that some businesses that come in and ask, they want refunds for the full 21 years or however many years are left of the TIF or BDD. I think with the coffee can is a little bit different because they gave some upfront money, so they narrowed down the amount of time in terms of bringing in the residual dollars, if that makes sense. So they didn't give them the full length of the TIF timeframe. But I don't remember seeing any projections that said it would be fully paid out in a certain period of time. Yeah. But the upfront money does come out of their total cap. The upfront money did come out of their total cap, so that's part of what brought the years down from the full TIF timeline to the 13 years. And then time with residential properties, again, just the normal increase in property taxes. So, and then if you look at BDD priorities, here's some things that I've heard from a lot of different people. There's some folks that would like to see us do new welcome signs, and I put in your packet, this isn't exactly what it would look like. It's just an exact example of a monument sign, a stone type sign that would say, have the village logo and say, you know, welcome to Hannah City on it, and be lit up, kind of like they have with nice neighborhoods or whatever. And I'm working on getting quotes for that. And so eventually, if that's something, and if you have any feedback today about whether you like or dislike that idea, I'm happy to hear it. What we would do is once I get the quotes and get a design or whatever, then I would bring it back here and you guys would say, yeah, we like it or we don't. But I don't even want to go down that path if you're thinking, you know, it doesn't make sense. But it's kind of like what you said about the facade is the strategy from historical perspective is 116 is our greatest asset, just like their business district or their historic district is their greatest asset. So how do we begin the process of making sure that anybody that drives through here sees a town that is thriving and growing and so forth? And one of the thoughts that came up was, well, if that's part of the strategy, our current signs are some of them are beat up and a little bit older, and so something more sturdy or a monument sign might be more meaningful. Reaction to that?
I think it's important that it's lit up. Yeah, because it can get pretty dark. I think that would be very nice.
Again, I don't know what they're going to cost. I'm working on it now, but
Where at?
so the one right now is down here, just past Murphy Road on the left, and the other one is just down here. I think just same locations, because that makes it easier with IDOT and others, and Ameren in terms of getting electricity. Now, the electricity might change it a little bit, but our initial thoughts were the same place. We actually have 4 of them today. One's outside of here, And there's another one over on Hannah City Glassford, but our initial thoughts were just to do each end on 116. And use existing dollars for that, not ongoing dollars for that. So pull that from the whatever 133 that we've got in savings.
You're thinking along the stone monument with, is that what's the insert?
Yeah, I don't know what the material would be, something that's weather resistant, obviously. I'm just getting designs now, so I don't know. And I think this one looks like it's got stucco around it. I just picked one for an example to show you, but it would be approximately the same size as we have now. It just would be stone or mason of some form with a static sign. We did look at electric signs, but then we found out from IDOT that there's all kinds of issues associated with that. And we've had some towns that have tried to do it, that they've got their electric signs now sitting idle because they can't use them because of the IDOT rules, and they didn't find out in advance. So we kind of pulled back to the monument related signs, and then lighting them up we think is important as well, so you can see them.
So all 4 signs that we currently have, are they all the same?
They are.
So like if we're gonna have 2 on 116, could we maybe, like, are maybe 2 of them in better shape that we can put those on the other ones?
Yeah,
that we're
the one that's
leaving?
out here is really beat up. I think there's been some
Okay.
vandalism on
Oh,
it.
no.
The one right out here is not in too bad a shape. I don't know how the others are, but yes, we could move them if we wanted
If
to.
maybe the ones that are staying are really bent out of shape or
Yeah,
something.
this one down here is really bad.
Yeah.
It's got
And that's like the
scratches.
main one, I feel like.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
But
So
again,
just out of curiosity, and this is only because I'm looking at signage myself. Have you gotten to the point whether they tell you the lighting is an external mount or an internal mount, meaning like this one's an external, it's offset from the signage casting on it versus like a halo signage?
we have not had that conversation yet.
Let
And
me know what you decide.
what are you hearing?
I'm a halo guy now.
Now, my preference would be to have the lighting connected to the sign, not separate from the sign, because I think it would be sturdier and have less chance of getting run over by the mowers.
Mower.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
And
then
it's-
you gotta decide whether you want it casting from above, casting down on it, or true inset.
I didn't realize it was this complicated, man. But
Wait.
And the position of the vehicle when they come into town, making sure the lighting is at the right point.
The angle that they're gonna set this at.
yeah. So I've got 2 vendors right now that we're talking to, and we'll see what comes out of that. And I'll continue to pursue that. Another thing we've heard a lot of feedback on is community lighting, and the scale of community lighting goes everywhere from people who think we need the old school street lights going up and down 116 and extending into Main, which I think would look great, to others who just have a much more practical view that say we just have a lot of dark places in town that just need general lighting in order to make sure that the town is lit up better than it is now. And so this is another project that if you guys think it's something that we should look into, I'll have our street guys start looking around and figuring out where we might be able to do things and put lighting in the community. But it has gotten a lot of feedback when I go out and ask, what would you like to see different? And lighting up the town seems to be, it's probably the number one thing I hear, to be honest with you. That, and if you talk to businesses, it's in-town parking. But residents, it's mostly lighting. Thoughts on that? Thoughts on the decorative versus just the general, or both, or?
I'd be curious where you.
I have something, Brian.
Okay, hold on 1 second, Zach. We'll get to you.
You guys are planning to call for the
Oh, it's,
better.
yeah, there's areas in town that are dark, but we have ways of finding out. But yeah, we don't have a lot of problems. But quite honestly, you also have to weigh that a lot of folks don't want a lot of light. So
Yeah.
you have that varying degree of, how much light.
That's one of the interesting things, and I don't know, maybe you can speak to Farmington's experience, but my guess is that I view this as all positive. We're going to be putting dollars back into the community and so forth, but I'm guessing even when you do that, there's people that find trouble or fault with whatever you do. Zach, what did you have?
I just want to bring up again that discussion we had at the last board meeting, where Ryan was talking about if we are to make, and I agree with him. When we do make cosmetic or lighting changes to the village, we should try and be conscious about the look we're trying to give the village. Which is why I'm in favor of like a stone mason, like cobblestone sign. Um, and just be conscious of the design choices because that's going to sort of like Brian was talking about, uh those stone signs are associated with like nicer, fancier neighborhoods as opposed to like a green eye dot, welcome to Hannah City population, this. So we should just be conscious of those design choices.
Yeah, I'll expand on that a little bit. Zach Ryan, one of our board members, had brought up the fact that as we do these projects, we need to have some sort of branding or consistent look so that it all kind of looks and feels the same. And so I think that was good advice and good for us to hear again. So, go ahead.
Just lighting in general, I think you end up going down 2 avenues. The branding of the community through the throughway of 116.
Yeah,
And then the community safety component of it.
yeah.
With just a functional street light, would be able to see and be safe.
And would you see a priority on either of those?
Well, when you're talking about a business development and TIF to raise TIF dollars, I think more what's going to bring more money in. And I think that initial reaction to the 116 draw more in before you start working on more of those nuanced
Yep.
residential.
I understand what you're saying. So you're thinking decorative versus just the regular street lighting.
For 116.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Good feedback. Next is the Park District projects, and one of the things I think you guys brought up here last time was the community garden, and that's in this part of the projects we're talking about. I have been meeting with them. They have named Megan Welker the project leader, and she sits on this committee. She had to work tonight. If it would have been last night, she would have been here, but we moved it because of the voting. So she couldn't be here and feels terrible about that, but I'm working closely with her, and she's working on that. And I'll show you very specifically kind of what we're talking about there in a little bit. We're talking about our own residential program, and I've got details on that. And we're talking about our own commercial grant program, which would be open to everything within the business development district, but would have a 116 corridor focus. So, and I guess if you guys agree with that, you're the advisory group, but I think based upon the feedback we've gotten so far that you would be. And I've got more details on that as well. And we're looking at starting these programs with the fiscal year beginning May 1 of 2023. And I'll talk more about that as well. Okay, so BDD phase 1, we got $133,000 in reserves. That has actually grown. We had some money that we'd already given the Park District that they ended up giving back because now they're looking at a broader scope. So that number is probably closer to 160, something like that. And we're getting close to 160, 170 a year. And what we're looking at is pulling out of that is the welcome signs, the lighting, and then we also need to have seed money for starting the business and residential programs. And then emergencies, and if you have other ideas, we can look at those. We don't have to do the things that I've shared. If you have other thoughts, we can look at and discuss anything. But that's kind of what we're thinking, is trying to use the reserves for those things. And as it sits today, unless you guys tell me something different, I'll bring back quotes on the welcome signs and the lighting. All right, so now getting into the hardcore stuff on the BDD strategy. So phase 1, this would be the ongoing BDD funding. And again, this is just thoughts that I've pulled together based upon the information I've got from folks. We're getting roughly $168,000 a year. So we have that ongoing, and hopefully it's going to grow and get even more as we continue to grow. And so what I was proposing is that we would allocate around $18,000 a year or $1,500 a month to the Park District project, both for their building renovation and for the new park. And I've got a whole presentation on that we'll talk about. And then we've got the residential program, and what we're looking at is $25,000 a year, 5 homes, or unless if the dollars are less, but we would do 75% or a cap of $5,000. I think Farmington's 2,500, but most of the people I talked to here said if you're going to do something on the outside of your house, especially in today's world, $2,500 doesn't go very far. So it would be a $5,000 cap. So if all projects came in and hit the cap of 5,000, we would hit our $25,000 allocation for the year. For over 21 years, we would do 105 projects and put out somewhere around $25,000 over the 21 years of the BDD. So over $500,000 for 105 homes within the village. Now you can see it's if you put aside the Park District presentation, I've got details on each of the programs. So let's start with the Residential Development Grant Program. And if you guys are comfortable with what we've got in here, or we can modify it, we could vote on this tonight if you want. But what I've done is I've worked with Farmington. I've taken kind of what they developed. I've worked with our TIF attorneys and the economic people that are associated with our TIF attorneys. And this would be a resolution that we would put in front of the village board if it had your recommendation. Basically, the highlights are we would take $25,000 a year out of our BDD income, and we would put a program out to the community. You go to slide with the map, so it's right after slide 5. So anybody that's in that BDD district, this map right here, so any residential property that is in that area, most of it, I think, is on the south side of 116. But basically what would happen is people would apply. There's an application in here, and people would spell out what they're doing. Those applications would come into me, and we would get them, let's call it roughly the April timeframe of next year. We would bring all the projects into this room, and you all would look at the projects and you would rank them and say, these are the projects that we want to do in priority order, and then we'd make that recommendation to the board, the village board, and then the village board would either approve or modify your recommendation, and we would so basically what we're saying is we'd allocate $25,000, and we would spend up to $5,000 or 75% of any project. So if all projects were $5,000, we'd only be doing 5 homes a year. And that's different than Farmington. They do $2,500 and they do close to 10 homes a year. But when I talked to people, most of them felt like a bigger impact on a fewer number of homes is better, especially since we're a smaller community, less than half the size. We've got about 600 homes in town, so we'd be hitting a little over 100 of those 6 homes. And the other thing to remember is just because we start here doesn't mean we have to stay here. So in a minute, I'm going to show you the business program, which is richer. But what could happen is we could do the business program for 3 or 4 or 5 years, and we could feel like we've got the 116 corridor pretty well where we want it, and there are a lot of good things already done. And we could say we don't really want to allocate $15,000, to those projects, business projects anymore. We want to shift those dollars now to the residential side and bulk it up more, or not. I mean, those are things that we can talk about. So basically what you'd be saying, if you like this, you'd be saying to the board that you want to allocate $25,000 of the BDD income to a program that would be residential. There'd be rules associated with it. You all would approve the programs. The one thing we want to do differently than Farmington is Farmington's is first come, first serve. So the first people that send them in get the dollars. Our folks have said they want to do that differently, which puts a little bit more responsibility on us, because what we'd be doing is looking at them and saying, these are the projects that we feel are going to have the greatest impact on the community and the most positive impact on the community. And I think another criteria that we might put in place is if someone got a grant in year one, we would take that into consideration if they wanted a grant in year two as well. Doesn't mean they wouldn't get it. If it was still a great project and it was going to have a great impact on the community, we may still vote it up in one of the top 5. But if we can do as many different homes as possible. The other thing, to your point, is if there's a home on the 116 corridor, that's probably going to have emphasis, you know. So we would talk about all of those things. The other thing I'm doing, just a side note, is I'm trying to see if I can find, there's a couple of realtors in town, and I'm kind of seeing if one of them might be willing to serve, because I think from a residential standpoint, they'd be very helpful in saying that project's going to do more for the resale or whatever of the home as well. So having that expertise on the committee as another at-large person might make sense. All right, so that's a lot for you guys to digest. I'm going to shut up and get your thoughts and feedback on the residential program. What do you like? What don't you like? What would you modify? Would you leave it as is? You're not going to hurt my feelings, I promise.
I have a few things. One thing I would like to see this map larger so
Sure.
that we can see more of the detail. Like, I'm struggling to see that.
Yep. Just
Yeah.
FYI, I can get those for you. The other thing you can do is both the TIF and BDD map are available on the website.
On the website.
So if you
Okay.
go under economic development, you can go down and
find
drop
it
down
there.
and you can see the larger
Okay.
maps. But yes, I think that's a fair point.
Yes, just in terms of this picture here.
Yep.
So I was curious, like, what are some of the things that people have done in Farmington to their homes? Do you have any
Yeah,
examples?
I do, but there's also a list. If you look in the back here, there's
Okay.
So page 3 of the application.
so it's windows, siding, porches, steps, ramps, roof repair. I do know that they've had several tree projects that I saw on their last list.
I've sat in, I've approved I think almost everyone in Farmington's done these. And
Yeah.
they cover the gamut. The 3 observations I'll share with you.
Just real
Yes.
quick, I'm sorry. Last year's tree removal, sidewalks and patio, porch replacement, paint porch and door, steps and pad, new roof paint house, demolish residence, sidewalk replacement.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, sorry, go
So,
ahead.
that raising of a property would be one that kind of catches you off guard as far as an enhancement.
Unless it's not a very good property.
And then is that how you want to allocate the residential versus having the village or the city or whoever take care of that through their own ordinances and bylaws and such. So that could be one. Sometimes you consider it if you had building permits going out to go into something, but
Well, raising the property, you're talking about tearing it down.
yeah.
Yeah.
Could actually decrease, obviously, the property tax. Is that what you mean?
Correct, and yeah, it just seems in conflict with what you're trying to prove grants for to
Of
better.
course, it also
everybody.
depends on the home and how it is.
Yeah,
As you well know.
that's one observation. Another observation
Could
is
be a blighted property.
the
And to be honest with you, the TIF district is built mostly on the places where there are blighted properties, so you're gonna face that.
yeah. The owner occupied component versus the owner not living there. You know, how do you feel about supporting their financial endeavor versus supporting someone that is living in the home?
So let me take that a step further and make sure I understand. So we have a vacant property. We have several vacant properties in town. We have programs where they have to register, and then we hold them accountable for making sure it's kept up to date and so forth. But your point is, if it's in the district, one of those people could come in that owns that home, and they could say, it's a vacant home, but we really want to dress it up, right? But you're dressing up a home that's currently empty versus dressing up a home where there's currently a resident.
Well,
you're
no, I'm talking
you're
about
talking about
them
a
pressing it
rental
up
property.
to rent it for
Yeah.
rental property.
Oh, I
Person
see.
owns it, they wanna fix it up. 'cause
Well,
they
and I
want-
guess if it's vacant, that might be the same case, but I get your point now.
And so, you know, just your own personal biases and opinions on whether you give more value to a person that lives in the home versus someone that is looking to make property on the, or make a profit on the home.
Yeah.
And then, the whole timing of it. So first come, first serve, but also when the work commences, how many quotes are you gonna look at? Who's considered a viable quote? What if the property owner wants to perform the work themselves, but, you know, is applying for material costs? Those are some observations, I would say, for
Yeah.
3 years, I think we've been doing it.
I don't know how long the residential program's been.
3 or 4.
Um,
Those aren't gonna be solved tonight, it's as comes, and then know what we're gonna get.
Yeah, so for me, the big questions are you comfortable with the $25,000 allocation out of the total? Are you comfortable with the $5,000 and 75%? Are you comfortable with not being first come, first served, but being merit-based?
With that, when would the decision be made by the committee?
So in my mind is if we approve this tonight, and I'm not trying to put my knee in your back, but let's say you approved it tonight. Well, my goal would be is between now and let's say maybe the end of February, I'm communicating to the community about the program and so forth. And the applications are out and so forth. We bring the applications in March. We begin reviewing them roughly in the April, May timeframe. Our budget begins in May, right? So I can, whatever we think we're gonna do is now that $25,000 is in the next year's budget, right? And then we would grant the awards probably in the May, June timeframe. The homeowners would need to go do the work themselves and pay for it themselves. That's the way it works. And then we have people that go inspect it. And then once we approve it, then we cut a check to the homeowner for the reimbursement for the work that was done. That's the way Farmington does it, so that's the way.
And they got 180 days to do it.
Right. 180 in approval.
Well, what if the selected contractor can't get to the project, do we get extensions?
My understanding is that Farmington does have a little bit of grace when it comes to those things, but that's my perception. I don't,
We would just be expecting the homeowner to be in constant contact with us if those things were becoming an issue.
Let's say we're talking about an asphalt project. At some point, they're gonna shut down the asphalt for the season.
Right.
So that got approved late, and it didn't get done, it didn't get done, it didn't get done. What does that happen? What, do they automatically get approval for the next year? Beyond their circle?
now, to me, now again, I'm not in charge. I don't have a vote anywhere. But I think it would be a re-up, right? You know, it would be, they can put their project back in, but they'd have to compete against all the new projects. And if there's better ones, at the end of the day, we're trying to allocate funds to do the greatest good for the village. And if those 5 projects are the greatest good that year, but one doesn't get done and gets pushed to the next year, and it's not in the top 5 the next year, then.
So there'll be a sunset on reimbursable things to be distributed by the village.
Yeah, I think it's in here that it says that has, I don't remember.
Yeah,
the-
it has the
It says
180
it.
days,
Yeah.
Like it's so hard to be able to get.
For me,
contract
though,
work.
for me, if nothing else, it's when we get to the next budget cycle, we're re-looking at all of them again, and if something doesn't get done, then it doesn't get done.
What if work was to start prior to an application being approved? Like, no, I mean, if
No,
I'm
I know
gonna-
you're trying to think
if
of
I'm
worst
gonna
case scenario.
Well, I'm gonna get my house sited this year regardless, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's gonna be a $25,000 project. I'm gonna put my application in and see what happens, but the contractor I've selected is coming and doing my house on May 15th. I'm excited about it. I put my application.
And then we kind of have to look
Dilly
at it as
dilly
a
around.
committee, like, well, they were gonna do it anyway. So it's like, do we need to pay for that to enhance the village?
Correct.
But it,
Do you know what I, yeah. like-
probably,
yeah.
though, most of these projects, these people are gonna be doing anyway.
I agree.
And so what if the work is already commenced when we approve it?
I mean, to me, again, I think we look at all comers and based upon the dollars we have, I think our driving force is, how do we best spend that $25,000 in order to enhance the village as much as possible? And if there's something that's already gonna be done anyway, then to me, that's a factor. But again, I don't have a vote anywhere.
I'm curious, like, we all know there's certain homes in this community that could definitely use an upgrade, right? Like, is the village going to be like marketing this to specific people, or how, like, when Farmington started it, were there a lot of applications or no? Like, I'm just curious,
So,
how is this gonna take off?
my understanding is we cannot go to like specific homes
Okay.
and say, but I think we can say within the business development district, we want to focus on this area alone.
Okay,
Now, there's issues associated with that, right? Because other people are going to be like, hey, wait a minute, why aren't we included in that? Just like they did the business development district, or we could, once we get to the business side, we could restrict it to the 116 corridor if we want. We can say anything that's in the BDD district as long as it's on 116. When I talked to people, what I heard was just open it up to everything and just let you all make that a high criteria. And if there's a great project on 116,
yeah,
but there's also a great project that's not on 116 that we think is as good, right? Then don't tie your hands, right? That it only can be on 116. So that's kind of the feedback I got. You got that. The point was this committee's smart enough to say, if 116 corridor is our strength, that we want to focus on that. But don't tie their hands in case there's something that's a block off or whatever that would be great. And again, you may agree or disagree with that, but that's kind of how. But I think you can restrict it within the business development district. You can say, oh, we're going to focus on just this area, but I don't think we can handpick
yeah.
properties or homes.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm comfortable with,
Everything.
yes, making a motion to approve this and take it before the village. I'll wait till a second for discussion.
Yeah. Do we have? So we have a motion by Chatterton, a second.
I'll second it.
Okay, a second by Thomas, and any discussion? More discussion?
Yes. So at the village meeting, I would be interested if the trustees had any feedback or input for the committee. I know the committee is supposed to be making recommendations to them, but I'm wondering if they had any feedback as far as the priority, as far as the qualifying projects or, areas that they would
Yeah.
think would
So.
be of a priority.
So I've talked to some of them, and some of their
good.
feedback is built into what I'm presenting to you
Okay.
here. Yeah. I think their primary concern or primary focus is the 116 corridor, but and I think they were more comfortable with a higher number with fewer homes than a lower number and more homes. They are also comfortable with the fact that if in year two we say we're going to move dollars around and we want to do 10 homes at 5,000, we can make that change. We can recommend and do that. And so I think they're more excited about let's just get rolling, get started, and get something out of the gate. And I think there's a lot of interest and excitement about how we communicate and how we help people understand that how economic development is working to, to be honest with you, between these two programs in over a 20-year period of time, the village would be putting $2 million into a variety of homes and businesses if we did it for 21 years straight. So they're excited about that. They're excited about broadening community and economic development beyond just new businesses and making it available to residents and existing businesses. One of the big debates that's being had, and we'll talk about it in here, is you can use business development district money and TIF money for infrastructure. So, and your opinion is valuable, is we could put more money into these programs and not do, like, there's a debate on, well, we've got sewer lines that need to be done. You know, do you raise sewer rates in order to fund that? Or can we use a portion of the BDD and TIF dollars to pick up a portion of that? And where's the balance between economic development and getting other types of projects done? And there's some that feel strongly that we don't want to use any of it for infrastructure, and there's others that feel like, no, as long as we've got good programs in the other, I don't have a problem using it for infrastructure. And so your opinion is going to be valuable in that as well.
So just
All right.
to be clear, we are deciding on this document with the subsequent application and the allocation of 25 grand for this next.
Correct. You're recommending that this ordinance be placed in front of the board and they vote on it.
Right, I guess my only request would be that next year, when it comes back around, to determine the financial allotment, that we also take a look at the application form, not the ordinance, the application form.
There's things you would want to change about the.
No, I just think that I think that we'll have a year's worth of data.
Okay.
That we'll want to revisit the application. The ordinance is pretty straightforward. There's
Agreed.
lots of flexibility, but the application, we may want to see a little bit more information.
The only thing on the residential application, because I read through the whole thing.
Yep.
Number 4. I'm
What
pretty
page?
sure it's, page 2 of the application form, number 4. States applicants must attach a detailed description of the planned improvements, yada, yada. Village reserves the right to request additional information, including but not limited to how the building will be utilized. Example, anticipated type of business use. That reads the same as the application for the businesses. Is that was it just a copy and paste? Why would we be asking a resident how they're gonna be using their building?
For that exact reason, like it's gonna be a rental or an Airbnb
For example,
you're gonna run a
anticipated
hair
type
salon.
of business
Yeah, you may
use.
run maybe
Yeah.
you're doing a modification to run. a
And we
hair
do have some
salon.
homes where people are like
Okay.
fixing cars in their side
I
yard
didn't
and,
think like that.
Yep,
Okay, good
yep.
thing.
yep, no, it's a great
That's
question.
catch, though, just in case.
Yeah. Yep. We've actually had people come in and talk about, like, you know, small little garages for auto body repair and, but they're in the residential district and, okay. So we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Or are we ready to vote on? Basically what you're saying is, as the CEDC, you're willing to put this forward and ask the village board to vote on it.
Are we gonna
All,
vote?
yes, no more discussion? Okay, everybody, want to move it forward, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Okay, so it's approved. It is, yeah. Okay, so then the next one is the commercial facade renovation grant program. And again, it's the same kind of program. The district is exactly the same. I'm going back to look on the type of projects.
So when Zach was mentioning Ryan from the board saying there's a cosmetic look the village is thinking about, do you know what that look is?
No, there wasn't
They don't-
really,
there's nothing specific
there
yet?
was just a desire to be consistent, but there was no specifics as to what that consistent look should be. I guess this one doesn't have the same list of types of things, does it? Amanda?
On page 3 of the application, number 6, when you break it down, it looks like A through C gives you more of a description.
Yeah, it does.
So on page 3 of the application.
Thank you, thank you. Can't tell you how many times I've looked at this thing. Okay, 6. No, we're on page 3 of the application.
It's further back. Second to last page. of the packet.
Yeah, on the application form on the back page.
Okay. Did it include, I was trying to remember if it included parking lot work.
Not that I said. Not on the facade. Doesn't the facade have to be physically attached to a structure?
I guess my question would be is that, because I do know we have some businesses that's, if we have this program, that's what they're gonna ask for. So I guess redoing like blacktopping their,
Oh, sure.
huh?
The way I read it, and it's looking very similar to the facade application that
Yeah,
Farmington had.
we have the same people working on it.
Yeah,
Right.
it has to be physically attached to the structure, and here it says on the front or side,
Yeah, that's what I.
or rear facade, at least
So-
it's commercial.
I think we can do whatever we want to with the program. I guess my question for you all would be, should we broaden it and include signage and blacktopping and other types of things, or
If that's the case, then I'd like to see that a little bit more spelled out, because when I see a facade project, facade is, yeah. And I understand it touches all sides of the building here within the subsection, but I can't think of any other external work that would be applicable.
Okay. Well, is that something, I guess, is that something you would like to see included? Or you like the facade as
For our
is?
first go at it, no. Because I think it gets a little sticky on what you're gonna approve and such, and I think the first year, kind of stick with what you got very clean cut in front of you, and you can work with people on, and if you wanna expand it, then
Based on what we learn.
yeah.
Okay. No, that's
I,
good.
and when you talk about blacktop, I just saw a lot of money go out in blacktopping in Farmington. I mean, there was a,
A lot of people took advantage of that, is what you're saying.
yeah.
Do you think
we
it
got
had,
six figures fast.
did it add value?
Yeah, yes, I believe it does.
But not as much as the facade in your mind?
No, the curb appeal to a fresh asphalt versus worn asphalt patching and a nice clean front, there's a difference.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I think what I'm hearing is we like the facade program as is for the first year. Is that what I'm hearing? Which the projects would be the ones listed in item 6 in the application.
I guess if you were to extend it, let's say for parking, because I'm apprehensive about going down the road of parking because I know that it's such a hot button for our business owners around here.
Yeah, because I can tell you there's,
And,
I mean,
and how do you
hog,
create,
hog trough, KPs.
yeah, and
I
how do
mean,
you create equity on those of the parking, just knowing the geographic location and their proximity to available public access parking versus their provided parking?
Sure.
And then what do we give preference to as a committee? We give it to the one that those people have to purchase and maintain, or a business that has the luxury of being located where they have lots of access to public parking?
Sure.
And I think it gets be a sticky wicket on.
What about signage? Would you consider that facade? It's not specifically spelled out in here, but
Is it affixed? Would the signage be affixed to the building? I would envision that being.
well, so
Facade.
let's take a specific example. Hog Trop has wood painted signage. They could buy,
That the one that's affixed, or the one that they give the daily special?
no, the one that's fixed on the building.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's facade.
Okay, so it doesn't need to be spelled out. Signage doesn't need to be spelled out. It's part of the facade.
Yeah, when I think of hog
So
drop, I think of that.
what if like
Yeah.
KP's Wings wanted a new sign out front? Like, you know how they have the one that you can put the letters on? That would not be applicable here then. Is that correct?
That's correct, I think.
Right, like
Okay.
Hog Trough puts out
Yeah.
their special each
Yeah,
day.
yeah.
That's not a
That's
fix.
not going to be, okay. But it would look nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but there
But that would be
again,
a signage
Yeah, I know.
ordinance
Yeah.
project.
Yeah.
If we find that signage, you know, like we're doing signage for the village, bringing it to the village.
Yeah,
hey, Ron, can you mute?
depends on what you want.
Well, if you're
Ron.
tempting. Can I mute? Yeah.
Thanks.
And hopefully they'll have money for signage once they earn the grant.
Okay,
Not opposed to it.
I'm just asking, it doesn't make any difference to me. All I'm saying is when I talk to people, what the kinds of things I hear are signage, parking, those types of things that they'd be excited about doing. Doesn't mean we have to do the program around those things. That's just the feedback I get from the businesses. I mean, if we're coming in and saying if they do a $20,000 project, and we're gonna spend 15 grand of it, I'm figuring they're gonna try to figure out a way to upgrade their facade. But there again, the question is facade better than parking? Or do we change the program somewhere down the road to do parking? And
Oh, I think like Zach said, that second or third year, you could change it to
Right.
add parking and signs. I mean, you could dump $15,000 to $20,000 in electronic signs. So, I mean, what do you really want? The electronic sign or the building to look?
the building to look.
And if a business is good, people will find a way. You look at big cities like Chicago or St. Louis, there's not parking in front of your favorite restaurant. You find a way to get there. We can make our facades look better first.
Okay. This is why we have you all. So do I have a motion then to put this in front of the village board as written?
Yeah, I so move.
I'll second.
So we got Chatterton motion and Tuttle second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, now, let's talk a little bit about, let's see if there's anything else in this presentation that I wanted to share. I think we've covered everything in this deck. BDD strategy, I covered the process. We already talked about that.
You don't need to talk about more sewer renovations?
Okay, yeah, I guess I had just a little bit of feedback on that. There's nothing in the works right now, but if you go back and look at the dollars, so if we decide that we're gonna do these two programs, plus we're gonna support the park district, and I'm not making that assumption, we're gonna talk about that in a minute. But that's only taken 118 of the 168, so we roughly have another $50,000 unallocated that we could do other things with. We could expand the programs we just talked about. We could do more for the park district. We could create new programs. We could do all kinds of different things. Or one of the options is we could use a portion of those dollars to do things like we've got sewer renovation. The town has half their sewer has been relined. We have the other half that needs to be relined. We could go out and get a USDA loan, low interest rate loan. They forgive a portion of it. We have a monthly payment, and we could take that monthly payment from the BDD money. And then we'd have the sewer in town completely lined. And why is that important? Well, every time we get infiltration into the sewer lines, then the lift stations work harder, more goes out to the lagoon fills up faster, so there's additional costs down the road that ultimately is gonna have to be paid for somehow, right? So the discussion is, do you do something with sewer rates? Do you do, do we wanna use economic development dollars for some of those things? Or do we wanna leave economic development dollars solely for the types of programs we just discussed? That's the philosophical discussion.
So when the sanitary district was taken over by the village,
Correct.
did you all increase your tax at that time?
We did.
So
We just absorbed so the lagoon and the sewer are even though they're connected, they're treated as two separate entities.
But there's no tax being levied.
There
Or
is
is
for,
there still?
there is for the lagoon, but when we took over that district, we just took the property tax that was being allocated to that we now have.
Okay, so the tax is still being imposed.
It's the same,
But it's
but
under another heading.
correct. Correct. Yep. And just separately, we're having discussions at the board now. The good news is we've, operationally, we're covering all of our operational costs. So the money that comes in and the money that we spend on all of our utilities and so forth to operate on a day-to-day basis, we're breaking even. So we don't need to do anything with rates for any of those things. The discussion is long-term capital. We got a water tower that we need. We've got water, we know we have some water leaks. We've got the roads taken care of, and that's all funded at this point. But we're trying to figure out what are the best ways to fund these other things. And the board currently is, and we've increased this, they're putting $14,000 a month away in capital right now. So, and the money that comes in, we're already setting aside $168,000 of capital annually to support capital projects, but it's not redoing a whole sewer line or finding all the leaks in the water line and redoing it, or doing a water tower. It's more like a lift station breaks and we've got the capital to do it, or the aeration lines or motors or pumps out at the lagoon break and we've got the money to do it. So we're in the process of trying to figure out long-term, how do we put capital in place with the limited amount of rate increases possible to make sure we've got the long-term capital to support the village. And we've made great progress in 2 years, but we've still got work to do. So the philosophical discussion is, and what you can weigh in on is, how do you feel about using economic development dollars, TIF or BDD, for infrastructure? You're not going to hurt anybody's feelings. That's
I
what
like
you,
to keep it above ground.
okay?
In all honesty,
Yeah, because
I
nobody
think of
sees a
these
line
two,
sewer.
I mean, if you're talking about sidewalks, curbing, parking, lights.
Yeah.
Facades,
Yeah,
windows and such,
yeah.
that's where I think of this money going. I'm not
No,
opposed
no.
to infrastructure, but I just kind of,
There are some that feel strongly the same way you do,
Yeah,
so.
I don't think we should close the door on it. I think it may be a discussion to have in a year or two.
yeah.
But I don't think you should close the door on it, because it's all about the infrastructure, and you can't run the water and flush the toilet. Who wants to? So, I mean, I understand your point, I'll take them. And I think maybe in a year or two, maybe additional discussions on it. But obviously, water tower, lining and sewers are very expensive.
Yeah, the water tower is 2 million, so.
So let's say, publicly commented about the Herman project, right? Let's say they needed a sewer and water extension access. I could see it coming before us for consideration, but maintenance and upgrade, I'm a little bit hesitant at this time, but new for expansion of business, that's a function of TIF.
Can the village systems handle additional stuff out?
It can. Like I said, right now, if you look at the individual areas, so buildings and grounds, we really don't have a whole lot of issues or problems. We have the street program where every street gets going to be revitalized every 5th year. We've got the funding through that, through the motor fuel tax and the amount of money we're setting aside. The lagoon doesn't have a whole lot of needs until it needs it, right? So 10 years from now, 15 years from now, we're probably going to have to dredge it out and do something, and that's going to be expensive. But we've kind of put that on hold because we have other needs at this point. We have some water leaks, and we need to find those, and we're working on that. Our leaks aren't as terrible as some, but they're more than the average. So there's some work to do to fix those. We have half the sewer lines that need to be lined, and we have the water tower if the EPA were to come in and say, do it now. So the current thinking is we need to figure out a way to fund the sewer. If EPA comes in and says something about the water tower, we're gonna have to borrow to do that anyway. So, why even try to, it's $2 million, so why even try to figure out how to fund it at this point? We've got the 20% that we'd have to put down to move forward with a grant or anything like that. So that money's set aside. So I think the thinking is our biggest priorities are sewer relining and fixing the water leaks are probably the two biggest. The water pressure might be an issue, and it already is an issue in some places in town. But you put in a new water tower, you know, if you don't have your leaks fixed, now you can have a bigger problem.
Maybe I'll find the leaks.
Hopefully, we sit on a lot of strip mines, so the water can get lost, but, yeah, it's, those are the, so what we're trying to do is blend, right? What kind of money do we spend on making the town look nicer and prettier and those types of things, so more people want to live here? But how do we make sure that the, you know, the care and feeding is done as well?
So I had some thoughts on that, and you actually kind of changed my mind once you brought up the above ground piece. But initially I was thinking, you know, it would be nice if, you know, yearly our committee could come together and finding these ways to move the community forward economically and everything, but offsetting a cost for our residents as well. Because in my mind, okay, a little bit less money being added to our sewer payment is more money you can go spend at the coffee can or
Agreed.
KT's or whatever. But then, you know, Dr. Chatterton brought up the point of maybe staying above ground where people can see the things that we are actually contributing.
Yeah.
I was curious is if we were to help with the sewer lines, is that a one-time expense from our committee? Like, could we just do that for the 1 year and that's over? Or will the water people think that they will always get the money from us?
Yeah, so the programs we're talking about now, the Park District, the residential and commercial programs, and if we did something on the sewer, is all gonna be kind of a perpetual, every year, or every month or whatever, we're taking so much out. Because the only way we would be able to do the sewer, because the sewer project's probably $800,000 project,
Okay.
right? So
Okay.
what we'd have to do is take out a low interest rate loan, and if it's $2,500 a month, the BDD would be saying, we'll pay X amount of that or whatever.
Are we allowed to carry that for this first year?
What do you mean?
Did they access the surplus, the 50,000?
Yeah.
Or does it go back into the village's stuff?
No, but what's in the business development district is in the district until we decide how to spend it. I think after the 21 years or whatever, you've got to have it allocated or spent before the district closes, which is, I'm sure we can figure out how to do that. But yeah, it's the way the village is operating right now is TIF money's TIF money, BDD's money is BDD money. We even go so far as track water, sewer, garbage, you know, lagoon, all separately as their own little businesses to see if the money that's coming in is covering our operational costs. And then now we're in the next phase, which is it enough to help us have capital to take care of the long-term needs? So there's a strategic plan going on right now on the utilities or the infrastructure that we're talking about, and then there's the whole economic development piece, and now the question is if and how those two things blend. Did we?
How about the just general internet connectivity for businesses and residents in town?
Yeah, well, Mid-Century's in town, and I don't know if you guys have them or not. There's different, I guess, districts that have to have so much available. We have looked at, I don't know whether or not business development dollars would apply in order to help them bring those into other areas. We've looked at, I think there are some grants and other things available, but at this point, Mid-Century's kind of waved us off and said, let us work our process and see if we get to where we want to go, but we could revisit that with them. Might be a possibility.
Do you hear concerns though from businesses and residents regarding access to high-speed internet?
I hear that they want it, right? But I don't get a lot, there's not a lot of noise, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm always being asked what type of like internet I have in my home from any new residents or neighbors. I think
Yeah.
it's a very common discussion that I have. Yeah, and everybody uses somebody different.
Yeah,
Is there
it's like-
frustration in it though, or?
I would say so, yes.
If you're a person that requires high-speed internet, like you work from home or something like that, then, I mean, it's a deal breaker.
I'll follow up on that. Okay, so, again, Megan sends her apologies that she shouldn't be here, but I want you to look at the Hannah City Park District Draft Support Strategy. This is their work and their information. Their board is in the process of kind of going through what they want to do, but basically, their key objectives are they want to enhance the current facilities to better serve the community. They want to implement plans to add a park across from the existing facility. Do you know where I'm talking about? The fenced off area with that green space? Okay. We'd actually, our guys from the village just went in and cleaned that up. So it's empty now. They want to leverage all their facility enhancements to grow funding and become self-sustaining over time. And they want to attract people to the community for events and to live. So that's kind of their goals. These are just rough numbers and rough projects. They're in the process right now of determining what of these things do they truly want on the list and what ones don't, and what can they get volunteers to do. And so we were just trying to get a rough figure so that we could understand, what kind of magnitude we're talking about. So the current facility, as you guys know, it needs a lot of work. It needs new windows. It needs some HVAC work potentially. I know Ron Gully's done some good work there to make it better. They want a new roof for the gym and the fitness center. They want fitness center equipment. They want to do some painting, a security system. They want to upgrade the bathrooms. There's a memorial garden. There's some parking, some other things that they want to do. And like I said, they're working on all of that right now and refining it down, and eventually they'll vote on what they want. We've got a rough figure of $350,000. It may be more, it might be less, who knows. But my guess is it'll probably come down some, but I don't know that for a fact. Then they also want to do a new park across from there in the green space. So all that fencing would come down. They'd have new buildings, so they want a pavilion there that people could use. They want bathrooms in the pavilion. They want a kind of a snack bar or something that could operate out of there. They want an event center, a stage, whatever, so they could have bands or programs or other kinds of stuff. They want to put a walking path around the outside. They want to put some new fencing up in certain areas, probably between like the apartment complexes and that kind of stuff. They want to put in new parking on each side so that there's places for people to park. And again, Ron Gully's done a lot of estimation for these guys, and so I had a rough figure of $450,000. So if the total project cost was $800,000, and again, it might be $650,000 or it might be $700,000. I don't know. We were just looking for order of magnitude. So I've been working with them to get them connected with the Greater Peoria Economic Development Council. And they've looked at the types of projects that they're wanting to do, and they thought 35% of it or so might be eligible for grants. So that would, if we could get grants, that'd be $280,000 that we could kind of pull off. And there might be more funding there. There might be less. That's just an estimate at this point. We're also working with some EPA groups to see if like the windows and some of those things have some grant funding that we might be able to do some things with there. So again, we're just trying to back into a number. If we got a USDA loan for $520,000, their current interest rate is 3.5%. So if you did a 20 or 30-year term, sometimes a percentage of that is forgiven. It could be up to 20% of the amount is forgiven. We've got one currently with the village. That's how we did the first lining of the sewers. So their monthly payment range would be anywhere from $2,300 to $3,000. So what I've challenged them to do is come up with and say, okay, so if the loan is $2,300 to $3,000, how much can the park district bring to the table? So they're already working on projects. They've got rooms they're looking to rent out that they aren't currently renting out. They're in negotiations with a child care facility on other things that they might be able to do there. So they're trying to figure out how much of that monthly payment they could come up with themselves. And then they would eventually come to the CEDC, and I've just picked a kind of an arbitrary number of $1,500 a month. So that'd be $18,000 a year that they could request from us. So we'd be, let's say it is $3,000, we'd be paying half of the low interest rate loan out of the CEDC in order to make that happen. And they've got other alternatives. They can do a referendum. You know, their dues aren't very high, and it's $24 a year, I think, per household, something like that. I mean, it's not much at all. But they're worried about going out now and asking for something. They'd rather do some of the work and then show that they're doing more for the community, and then circle back and see if they can get some additional dollars. I don't, have you seen the rendering of what the park could look like?
It's online, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Mhm.
And then I know the coffee can, they've had it in the window over there because Ron's been real involved in the project. And then the other challenge that we gave them, or I gave them, was, what new revenue, tell us what new revenue or new cost savings are you going to be able to get from doing it? And is there a timeline when you could say you could take on the full amount of the loan? So if we're giving them $18,000 a year, they doubled their current tax from 24 to 50. That's close to $18,000 a year. So maybe we're seed money to get them started, get them rolling. And once they're rolling, they do the referendum, and then they don't need our $1,500 anymore. And we take those dollars and move to someplace else. But we kind of challenge them to have that plan. So I know Megan's working on that. The goal would be is somewhere down the line, you'd have a renovated, nice new facility that could generate perhaps more income, and then that green space would become a park with the things in it that we were talking about, and they could hold events there and perhaps do some fundraising out of there as well.
So they're a taxing body too, correct?
They are.
Are they a 4A?
I don't know the answer to that. I know, I don't think so, but I don't know the answer.
What is their annual budget?
It's not much. It's probably 75,000 a year, something like that. I mean, that's not much.
So they're asking for, okay,
I'll be honest with you, I'd like to have some more information before we even.
No, I'm not asking you to vote or anything. I'm not asking you to vote on this at all. Eventually,
I'd like to know what they're, are they taxing to the full amount?
yeah, Megan's got to
What's their
come back
revenue?
and
What's their budget?
Megan and her team got to come back and give us a whole presentation. I just kind of wanted to set the image or vision of what they're talking about. And I know your point. Your point is, how are they going to get a loan at, if their income rate or whatever is what it is. And the only way probably that's going to happen is if the village comes alongside them, to help them do that. I guess to me, the question for you all is, do you see this as significantly valuable for the community if we were to take these steps with them? And is that a big swing at doing something for the village, or is it kind of meh to you? Or
Yeah, I don't think that I could make that decision tonight, but I think it's something that we could talk about with more information at the next meeting. That's my personal thought.
I'm never short on opinions.
I like it.
I'm very curious what their vision is versus existing property responsibilities versus expansion of new property.
Expand on that.
Well, they currently have a property. What's the age of that property?
It's old, and certainly in the discussion I've had, I don't know if this answers your question or not, but priority one is upgrading existing property.
Okay, so how?
It's about 70 years old.
So you have a 70-year-old property that is already a focal point and a viable use, generates revenue, right?
Yep.
Use structure. Is the priority ensuring the longevity of that, and then to what extent are you doing that before you talk about expansions? Because
It's a great question.
Because it really, I mean, it has a built-in revenue source, right? It makes money, people use it.
Yeah. Well, even the childcare is phenomenal. I mean,
Yeah, so like, do we support that? Or do we support new expansions? But I don't see how you do both.
Yeah, so just so I can back up, the way we got here is I told them to dream big, let's paint the big picture. And if we have to do multi-generational later, to your point, and then the board discussions have been right along the lines you have. There's people that feel very strongly, let's take care of the existing facility and then let's look at expanding over into the park. Part of the other issue is though some of the better grants are available on the park side rather than on the existing building side. So again, they haven't got all their work done. The park district hasn't. I mean, Megan's working with them to kind of get their details together. I just wanted on her behalf to paint the vision so that you saw that one of the things we were talking about is whether or not that's a good idea, is to support them in some way.
And another question, can TIF dollars be used to support referendum efforts for them?
I guess it depends. I don't think so. I guess it depends on what did you have in mind.
In any sort of campaign efforts?
We
such as
might be able to.
signage?
Yeah, we might be able to do some of that.
I'm
Yeah.
just curious.
Don't, I think the business development district dollars are, we have a little bit more flexibility with those than we do on the TIF side, but. Yeah. But I guess just from a general reaction, it's, is it on a scale of 1 to 10, or 10 being I'm excited beyond belief, 1 being it's not worth our time, you can't make that decision tonight, or you,
I'm not real excited at the moment, but I would agree with Zach that the infrastructure of the building is probably more important than other at this particular point in time. But I think we need to have some folks here that can answer the questions, talk about different things.
agreed.
That's my personal thought on it.
Others?
As a resident / member at large, I look at the park piece and having a good focal point for the community as a really great way to move forward. But that's my standpoint as a
Yeah.
resident.
Yeah, as a resident,
Mhm.
not a member of this committee.
Yeah.
I would make the personal choice to support a referendum for a park district. As a voting contributing member of this committee, that, these other topics that we've already talked about this evening.
Are a
seems like
higher
more-
priority to
It seems like more within the vein of the work that we're here to do.
Yeah, I'd like to have money available for, future projects and stuff like that, that really, have an impact on the economic development of the community. Don't get me wrong, it's a quality of life issue with the park, I totally get that.
Like if we came across a grant that was a $500,000 lightscape project that was gonna give us the state-of-the-art, most historical, most awesome lights. But, it's half contributing and we gotta come up with it, I'd want to at least go down that road.
Yeah.
Be able to.
Okay, I got one more thing. I know we're running long, but the last thing's kind of fun, I think, anyway. It's the, where is it? Okay, yeah, it's says Community Economic Development Council. It's got the Hannah City Days on the second slide. Just wanted to give you an update because I know we talked about it, but the Park District is looking at revitalizing Hannah City Days. They're talking about doing it in a way that they would have a business tour. So where you'd have some sort of punch card or electronic card where you would go to each of the main places in town. And let's say you go to refuel and you're not a drinker, well, you don't have to buy anything. You just would give a $10 donation to the Park District or something there in order to get the check on the card. So basically for a 2-week period of time, we'd be trying to get people to tour as many of the places. And if you go to all of them once, you get one whole punch card. If you go them twice, you get 2 punch cards. For every punch card, then you would get a free Hannah City Village t-shirt. And you'd go into a drawing for, some additional prize or whatever. So trying to generate interest and understanding. And then if we got the new park done, they would have it, the final thing at the park. The t-shirt design, we did a design contest. And there were 2 logos that got approved, but the one that we're starting with, you can see the t-shirts there, the Village of Hannah City t-shirts. So those are actually in the process of being printed. We've got 300 of them coming. We're going to begin selling them to try to break even, but you guys had talked last time we were here about maybe doing something. We can use them for fundraising or whatever, but we could also do the new resident thing. You guys talked about when somebody new comes to town, having a representative. And we could either do it here, or somebody could go to their house and give them a free shirt or something along those lines. So again, I was just looking for some thoughts and feedback here. This has all been funded by the village at this point. I'm hoping we're going to have the shirts here this week so that we can begin the process of selling them. We might give them to play people if you guys are doing a fundraiser or something like that. We could sell them to you at cost or wholesale or something like that, and you could make a little money on them yourselves. Or like we said, if you wanted to, we could do the new resident thing. Last time we talked, I think you brought up the idea of and using that as the gift for them. So just thoughts, reaction to that?
For the new residents, the shirts, something I ran into at the Booster Club is we stopped offering like the shirts as like a free gift because getting people's sizes is just extra work. So like if there's something else we could give residents, that would save everyone a lot of time and hassle.
Yeah,
Can you have that made in a sticker?
you could.
Yeah,
Those
or
are
like a
really-
magnet or
Mean for
something.
like cars?
Or they can put it in their window.
Yeah.
Or, yeah.
Okay.
The
On the
shirts,
fridge, a magnet, something.
Got it.
Do you guys have a place that you're buying these shirts from? That's like,
We're using a
Nice,
company out of Princeville right now. I don't know the name of them. Why, do you have somebody that, or you're looking for somebody we like?
No, we use somebody for the boosters, and I was gonna say if you needed any place in the future.
Yeah, if you could send me a contact or whatever, I'd be happy to give it, Tracy Sollenberger, who works for us, is the one that does that. All right, I think we have covered everything. Any open discussion, anything that we didn't cover? I'm thinking our next meeting, we may have one as early as January. I don't know, I put February, who knows? It'll depend on how we get these things together. I guess in terms of next steps, we'll implement these programs and get them started, and there may be some things that we need to do along there. I've also got assignments to find out about the, when did the districts receive their TIF dollars, getting larger maps, talking to mid-century about fiber. Is there anything I missed? Stickers or magnets versus shirts? Thoughts, feedback?
I still volunteer.
Go knock on somebody's door. Well, the other thing we talked about is, maybe that's a better touch, but we talked, because everybody has to get their water and sewer turned on, so they come in here, so we could just give them the gift then, but it's the
I
last.
mean, if are you talking about like a gift box or something? I mean, even the fire department, we have giveaways where we can give the folks safety type items and stuff like that. So we would be willing to participate in that in some way. I don't know how many you're talking per year.
Not a ton, you know.
Maybe a dozen, 20.
I mean,
Yeah, probably
we could
20.
even do like CO detectors or something like that, you know, it's a pretty nice gift actually, so.
Okay.
There's things that we can do to help folks.
Anything
Logistically,
you,
it probably makes sense to have that here, but like if people want, like, yeah, we can go out to their house and stuff.
yeah, that's got a little better touch, but it's logistically, it'd be easier just to do it when they come in, but.
Yeah, I mean, you can just ask them, say, hey, some community members would like to come welcome you. Would you be comfortable with them dropping by
Yeah.
some late afternoon or evening? And just let us know that,
Yeah, we're
hey,
willing to do that.
and if they're like, oh, no.
Then we send
We
you.
shoot first and ask questions later.
I'm not.
I always get skittish when I see that sign.
Yeah.
Somebody comes knocking at my door, I don't know.
Well, again, thank you guys for your time. I think we're moving into an exciting
Productive.
period of time here in the village, so appreciate you guys, and we will adjourn.
Yeah.
Thank you, Zach. Thanks, Ron.